Bring back that slide. Thank you. So how standards can support climate commitments and make them into real accountable action. We are in COP30, the COP of implementation, the COP of action, and international standards, we believe, are an important tool to help in that objective. I have a big challenge. We are a bit late, and we are very short on time, and quite a number of speakers. Some of them are a little bit late, but they are going to join us in a minute. That's COP. That's how it works. A lot of commitments for all of us, but nevertheless, I'm sure we are going to have an excellent and insightful discussion. We are going to start with setting the scene, right? Countries are here today, these 2 weeks, negotiating climate action. A lot of countries have presented new NDCs. And to set the scene, I have with me Mr. Mutalimov. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is the Senior Advisor, Office of the Representative of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, who very nicely hosted last year in Baku, of the administration of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. So we are going to hear first from the Azerbaijan perspective. What are your challenges? How are you looking at your national determined contributions? And what kind of support you think is needed to move ahead with this agenda? So with further ado, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garcia, and I would like to extend...
Very close.
Very close, okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Ms. Garcia, and for ISO and OECD for organizing this event and inviting me as a speaker, and would like to greet all of our participants. And I think it's very timely matter and topic to discuss here today. I believe that during the past 2-3 years, we hear the consistent messages from the government, from the international institutions, private sector, that the countries must raise their ambition in their NDCs, and it is also brings us to the question that how we should ensure that this NDCs with raised ambition should be implementable, measurable, and the financeable, because the countries like Azerbaijan, I believe it's also related to other countries with economic development needs support both on the financing mobilization, capacity building, institutional capacity. So I would like to divide this into 3 parts of what countries actually needs to deliver their NDC. First, I believe it's about the policy coherence. When we look at the national level to this issue, sector by sector, I think it is not enough to deliver the NDC. Energy policy, industrial strategy, sustainable transportation, land use, and trade policy should align and go in hand in hand. Otherwise, I believe it is just waste of time and the resource. In order to ensure this, I believe that we need to have strong interministerial cooperation between the government bodies, and also we need robust, reliable regulatory environment to ensure this. I think the second point is about finance mobilization, and I believe that no country can implement its ambitious NDCs using the public finance only. So here the most important is that how we can unlock, and what is needed for the countries to unlock large-scale private investment. Of course, the investors look for the again the government policies, of course data, transparency, and all of these factors also is kind of enabling environment for the private sector to invest it. And as Azerbaijan's experience in this, we see that we are investing a lot on renewable energy. We are working with private sector to get renewable energy projects, and what they are looking is again this transparency, how the government and the state is pushing the policies in this regard, and how is it regulations work. And of course, the last but not least is the institutional capacity, the infrastructure, all are also necessary to deliver it. Besides with the finance and also the policy, you need some practical capacity to deliver this NDC. You need to have the laboratories, certification systems, the body that coordinate all of these the matters among the other parties. I think here comes to our main discussion points, that we will need the expertise of the standardization bodies, economic organization, development partners, and also global trade community to help the parties to deliver this ambitious NDCs. And without having, when we are looking ahead to COP30 and call to deliver the ambitious NDC, we need again the robust framework. We need the clear data set with transparency and accountability. We need regulatory environment and institutional capacity for the parties to deliver
Excellent.
their NDCs.
Thank you so much. I think you have given us already a quite good overview of where we are. It's not a one actor thing, a one actor action that is needed. It requires real and national-wide and international-wide mobilization of different actors to move ahead this agenda. You mentioned infrastructure, the national quality infrastructure, also very important, based on international standards, but strengthened by conformity assessment actors, testing, laboratories, accreditation. So really a whole ecosystem that is needed, and of course all this accompanied by finance and capacity building and institutional capacity. Thank you very much. I will turn now to Jimena Mora. Thank you so much for coming. I know it's very challenging these days to all of us, but thank you so much for being with us. Jimena Mora is Director of GHG Mitigation of the Ministry of Environment of Peru. And Jimena, the question is the same for you. How is Peru doing in moving commitments to action, your NDCs to implementation? And we are going to have afterwards and hear from different actors of the multilateral system and the private sector. So what would you ask them? What would you need from them to move that agenda?
Thank you so much, and sorry for being late. As you mentioned, I was I was jumping from one and another event. Okay, let me tell you about a little bit about our country and Peru. We haven't, of course, just met our third NDC now, and we are trying to come in more actors. No. We are very, very confident that we're going to reach our goals, but not alone from the government. We are trying to bring the business partners and also another key actors in our country from the academy and many things. And this is, but there is something very important that when we're talking about achieve the Paris Agreement goals, we are talking about many issues because there are many provisions there. We are talking about the reporting, what the ETF, the Enhanced Transparency Framework. So this is very challenging in Peru because we are before Paris, we were not. It wasn't mandatory for us the reporting so often. So now the challenge is not just in terms of to get accountable and with very strong information behind, but also the timing. The timing is another issue, but very key for us because I know since Kyoto we deliver like 2 BURs, no 3 BURs, and now we have to start to submit every 2 years the BTR. So we are now trying to be prepared for this new moment, and we just realized that we have to involve these new actors, for example, in order to not just have strong data, but also have the data. So to be sure about the data that we are talking about, because there are many efforts that probably will be invisible if we are not able to report it as in a proper manner, and well, according with the modalities that the ETF just set for us. So I think the challenge for us is to bring all these actors for academy, for laboratories that will help us to produce in an effective timing all the data, and also to ensure that this with a confident information behind. Because, for example, the most important thing in terms of mitigation, the most important or the important instrument behind is our national inventory, and we have to improve year by year our inventory. The methodology asks for provide and deliver more certainty about our data, and for sure we have to go back. We have to ask new actors to this conversation, not just environmental ministry teams. Perhaps now are familiar with all these issues, but we have to bring more actors from different agencies in the government, and also for, as I mentioned, for another part. And the thing is that, sorry about that, we are trying to now to start more ambitious process in order first of all to try to strengthen the capacities for that, to make okay, perhaps to close the gap between their activities, and try to show how there are linkages with the thing that with the activities that we need to report. And sometimes they are very close, but they don't know about that, and try to use all the information that is already there, the strong information supported, align with the international standard, but to put it in to align with the information that we needed to report and this is a very important thing and I think as a country we have to not just say that we are do something or making effort in order to in climate action, but we have to deliver this through our bilateral and transparency reports as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jimena. You mentioned collaboration. You mentioned the importance of accountable action. You use those words, but also we need to have the mechanism, the data available to show that progress, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, of course, we have to progress, but then it's important to show the programs and how countries are advancing. And I know a lot of amazing work is going on. Congratulations to both your countries for all the efforts. You both have mentioned also international standards, and they are certainly part of the picture in the piece of implementation. We can set objectives, targets, but we need to get them. And actually, we have to all align on what we want to achieve, but then I think it's important also that we align what you were saying as well on how we get there, and that's where international standards will come in. Thank you so much. Dom, please stay with us, because I would like to now open a dialogue. We have a number of important actors that are playing an incredible role in ensuring that we are advancing the climate agenda. We have representatives of 3 multilateral organizations. So I have, and I will ask you to say for the cameras, please. So I have with me Ekho Elim, which is the director of the WTO Trade and Environment Division. Thank you, Ho, for being with us. I have also with me Laila Davis, policy analyst of the OECD Environmental Directorate, stepping in last minute. That's another thing that happens at COP for the director of the Environment Directorate. Thank you, Mariana, Laila, for stepping up for Mariana. And we have also Tom Beloe, who is the director of the Sustainable Finance Hub at UNDP. Thank you so much. And we also have with us the private sector. You mentioned how important it is to make sure that the private sector comes along with you to achieve your policy objectives. So I am pleased to have with us Emma Stewart, from the Sustainability Officer of Netflix. Thank you, Emma, also for running and making it. Very much appreciated. And I have also Kerry Constabile, Director of Decarbonization of Amazon. So the idea is to have now a discussion among us, but also please, you in the audience, please contribute. We also have representatives from national standards bodies here. We heard about standards. I'm sure there will be some insights to share. We'll start with the colleagues from WTO, OECD, and UNDP. And what I would like to hear after hearing the experiences from Peru, Azerbaijan, you follow very closely the experiences of many, many different Arab countries of your constituencies. So what do you think your organizations can contribute to supporting countries in their objectives, in their commitments, moving them into implementations? What kind of tools, frameworks you think can help governments overcome the main barriers we have heard about? Oh, you have the microphone. Please go ahead.
Well, thanks very much, Noelia. Great to be here. I think on your question, let me make basically 3 points. You asked about how can WTO help the countries move towards more effective climate action. So one area that we think that has been underutilized and needs to be used more is to look at the toolbox of trade policies that can support and accelerate climate action. And you have many of these tools. And these tools are fairly well known, and they're about making environmental goods, be it solar energy products, cheaper, more widely disseminated. It can be also about building quality infrastructure, which had been mentioned. It can also support climate services, a whole range of things. And actually, in short, since I don't have time, I just brought some work that we have done, which is these trade policy tools for climate action. And we've looked at how these things can be integrated into countries' NDCs. So they're not abstract, they're very concrete, and they're things that governments are already doing. Sometimes they don't know about it, unfortunately. but it's already there. And so let's collaborate on that front. That would be one. A second point is that trade doesn't exist in a vacuum. Trade exists with many other policies and standards. In fact, there's a very close relationship between trade and standards. And that's why the WTO, we have the Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement, which already commits member governments of the WTO to align towards international standards. Why the alignment to international standards? And that's my third point, is because we want to reduce fragmentation. We want more harmonization. And it's not just a nice to have, but it's because you need less fragmentation to ensure that supply chains work, they're more effective. They do deliver on all of those products that we need for climate action. You also need less fragmentation for standards, because supply chains need standards and they need a lot more harmonization towards standards. One way to do that is to align towards international standards, so the work of ISO and other international standards bodies are really vital. And perhaps my last point, because it started with this on quality infrastructure, it's so vital and it's not really fully understood. At WTO, we hear quite a lot actually from developing country members that they need a lot more capacity building on quality infrastructure. And it's the whole ecosystem. It's not just about hard infrastructure, it's also about so-called soft infrastructure. And that's the ability to work with standards, to implement standards, to do certification, and so forth. So rich, many, many areas here to work with. And finally to say, because this morning I met with the Global Renewables Alliance, and they reminded me and my colleagues that without trade, we would not have reduced the price of solar panels. And the price of solar panels today, which has gone down by about 40%, is largely due to the economies of scale through trade. And again, trade needs standards. They both work together. So let me stop on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose. Certainly trade has an incredible role to play. It's key for the advancement of any economy. It's key to advance the climate agenda as well. But a little bit following the comments from the colleagues from Azerbaijan and Peru, the infrastructure needs to be there, the capacity needs to be there, international standards need to be aligned. You talked of competition, and I'm sure my colleagues from the private sector may share a little bit of their view on that, because they are the actors that are the main users of those international standards. So fragmentation is certainly an aspect that touches them quite directly. And again, you mentioned the national quality infrastructure and a set of organizations, institutions, systems that exist in many, many countries already, but as you said, probably not well understood or not enough. Thank you so much. I will turn now to my colleague from OECD, Laila, and same question, how OECD is working with your member, with your governments, and what do you think is needed to continue accompanying them?
Okay, thank you for this question, and really interesting discussion so far, learning from these insights. So the OECD, we work as a forum for exchanging information, data, best practices. So our role is really creating this space for this type of exchange, and also in delivering evidence-based policy making. Excuse me. So one of our key messages for COP this year is that climate action makes economic sense. And this is based on a joint report with the UNDP, actually, which I'm happy to report on. And so this report is Investing in Climate Growth for Development. And it shows that enhanced NDCs increase global GDP by up to 13% by 2100. So the message of this report is that governments really can move forward with confidence that there are these benefits linked to NDCs. And of course, there are co-benefits that extend well beyond this. So moving into lifting 175 million additional people out of extreme poverty by 2050, but also actions to reduce emissions in transport and energy can improve quality and health, air quality and health, lowering disease rates, cutting healthcare costs, and boosting productivity. So there are a range of co-benefits that come with enhanced NDCs. And obviously beyond this, energy security. Through balanced energy mix, we can have decreased price volatility and improved affordability of energy. So how do these benefits come to life? The report has 4 key recommendations to governments really on implementing NDCs. And I think many of these have already been mentioned actually on some, so it's really interesting to hear how these are happening in practice as well. So first of all, it's about building political ownership across government, which I think was mentioned. So engaging the central government and key ministries, especially the Ministry of Finance, but to help secure the mandate, the resources, and the buy-in to move from commitment to action. And we've seen some really interesting examples of this with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, for example, in Rwanda, planning coordination for NDCs across lots of different ministries. Second, it's aligning NDCs with national and local development priorities. So integrating into broader development, integrating NDCs into broader development, economic planning and sectoral strategies to ensure policy coherence, that we're really approaching this across the government as a whole and unlocking synergies. And again, there are some really great examples across countries, but I realize we're short on time, so maybe I won't go into too many of them. But third, place affected stakeholders at the center of the transition. So early and inclusive stakeholder engagement really helps to design just and equitable transition plans while building social acceptance and public support for climate policies. 4, engaging with the private sector, and that's why it's really great having this dialogue here as well with across these different stakeholders in this room. So NDCs must provide stable signals to investors and be backed by credible financing strategies and project pipelines. And then 5th, of course, optimizing public finance and strengthening international support. So public budgets really need to be aligned with NDC targets, and access to climate finance needs to be simplified, and of course technical assistance scaled up. And I think capacity was also mentioned as an important priority. And we see country-led platforms as a really important tool for this, for bringing together development finance and having the country in the front seat to also mobilize private finance and private investment into these projects.
Thank you so much, Leila. And I think you have shown why NDCs being sometimes, I believe, for countries complicated probably to develop, but they are really important tools that can guide progress. And I think to some of the points that you raised, linked to what you were saying, that is not one actor's role. You need to link it to your development objectives. You need to link it to your budgets. You need to link it to other policies in place, and then you need to link it to your national actors, mainly the private sector. Thank you so much. I'd like to turn now to Tom from UNDP. Same-wise, what is the work of UNDP? You have been a very important actor supporting many countries in the development of their NDCs. Tell us a little bit where you are, what do you see, things moving, and how do you think you can support countries, and how frameworks are important for that?
Thank you very much for the question. I hope the micro is working. Is it? Seems to be going on and off a bit. Okay. It's brilliant to follow the previous all 4 panelists, because I think we're seeing the connections between growth, between climate, growth, development, and trade. And I just want to focus in a little bit on investment and the role of the private sector. And I think we're all, without talking about it explicitly, talking about countries' level of ambition in nationally determined contributions. Certainly from the country level, a primary instrument to bring partners behind climate action. And UNDP, as you may have heard the Secretary General in his opening remarks here, has been asked to lead something called the Climate Promise Forward, which is all about raising the ambition through raising the investability of NDCs, so that NDCs become investment plans for for the private sector, because as you have said rightly, both of you, the public sector cannot foot the bill of nationally determined contributions, of climate action. We've been implementing the climate promise with the rest of the UN the last 5 years to try and raise the ambition of NDCs. And they have been raised, as you have also mentioned. Many more targets are economy-wide in terms of mitigation. 80% of NDCs now include specific investments for adaptation, which wasn't the case before. But still only 65% of NDCs have investment plans. And if you listen to the private sector, which I know you will momentarily, the frustration is that NDCs do not provide guidance to the specificity that investors and private sector entities require. Sector-level investments, the supply chain support that's required, the pipelines that need developing, the financial instruments that need to provide de-risking. And so you've referenced country platforms. I know one of the major emphases in this COP is how do we as different partners come together to support governments and their own financial institutions in making NDCs investable. And that's what Climate Promise Forward is all about over the next 4 years, how we actually mobilize investment for NDCs. Let me finish by saying that I really think the ISO standards have a massive role to play in this. If we're to standardize and take scale investment in NDCs and the role of the private sector, we need standardization and scale, and the ISO provides that in its standards across economies. So I do hope that you'll be a great partner in NDC Climate Promise Forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. And you brought the financial aspect to the discussion, one of the challenges identified here. Congratulations on this mandate, and looking forward certainly to working together. I believe, colleague from Azerbaijan, you would like to ask a question before we quickly move to the private side.
Thank you very much. My question maybe to you or all other partners to better understand. You mentioned that the NDCs of the countries should show the real investment potential of the country or be investable, I would like just to understand from your perspective this issue, because I believe that the international partners, potential investors know each other very well, without including any investing trajectory or investing potential in the NDC or not. Investors know, for example, how the things go in Azerbaijan, how they can approach, what kind of investment they can put, what is the policy implementing in Azerbaijan. So this is just a real question, that how it is important to put some investment potential in the NDC in real life. Is it really matters, or we know each other without having these points in the NDC? If the country is open to investment, it will work, having or not having this the chapter or this line in the NDC. Thank you.
Tom, please.
Yes, I think, and I wouldn't want to talk about Azerbaijan specifically, but many developing economies in the world, including low-income countries and small island developing states, are using their NDCs for policy de-risking. And that means bringing some certainty to investors that if they invest in solar, if they invest in wind, that those investment opportunities are for perpetuity, that the policy environment does not change with each change of government, that there is some solidity to the policy framework. But most importantly, what I hear from investors, and again, I wouldn't want to talk about investors in Azerbaijan, is that despite that policy de-risking being provided, there is not yet the sector specificity of investment plans which will enable them to know which sectors to really channel their investment in and to channel their project development in, which is another area which is at risk of policy fluctuation. So again, I wouldn't want to cast any aspersions on the way in which you deal with investors in Azerbaijan, but in many developing economies, this is what I'm hearing.
Excellent. So the need to go to the sectorial level and really provide guidance, actually, to investors, to give them a bit of a roadmap or where to invest and where to put the money in alignment with the policy objectives. Thank you, Tom. I'll turn now to my colleagues from the private sector. You've been named a number of times. You are the really ones close to the action. So, on your perspective and following what we have discussed, how do you think frameworks guidance is important in terms of advancing with climate strategies and investments? What role do they play in enabling that from your perspective? Carrie, you would like to start?
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? I'm Carrie Constabile. I lead decarbonization strategy at Amazon. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's such an important discussion. As many of you know, Amazon, the company, not everyone knows how many sectors we're involved in. So we really are covering kind of a cut of the world economy, right, ranging from the cloud business that most people think of, the tech element of our business, but logistics, transport, food and agriculture, built environment. And because of that, we have a very complicated footprint, and we are always looking to standards to help to guide us to have consistency, have long-term predictability, so that we are a long-term investor. We are the largest clean energy investor, procurer in the world for the last 5 years, and we make long-term investments. And standards have enabled us to do that, because when standards are consistent, predictable, and actionable, private sector is able to have the confidence to then go in and make those long-term investments. This is quite an important time for the standards ecosystem at the voluntary level and also at the regulatory level, because several standards are being revised and updated. And I think what's really exciting is that there's a time to, I think what we need from the private sector is that standards are informed by businesses, and as my colleague from UNDP said, and the sectors. And something that, one example for Amazon is we've worked very heavily on transport and transport sectoral standards. There's something called GLEC, the Global Logistics, now I always forget that, but the Global Logistics Emissions Framework. And we worked with several companies to align on one way of agreement on metrics and one way of measuring emissions from the transport sector. And we all aligned, several of the leading logistics transport companies aligned to the GLEC framework. And if we didn't have that, it would be you would see tons of different ways of measuring emissions. It would be very difficult to say, okay, this is the way that we can incorporate our electric vehicle investments into our footprints, or this is, or 5 years down the line, this is how we're going to invest in electric vehicle infrastructure or freight vehicles, etc. We have that framework, we have that standard. That standard is referenced in many compliance frameworks increasingly, and that has enabled us to have the confidence to make long-term investments. I'll say one last thing, which is what's really important is interoperability. What is hard as a private sector, we are, especially when you're working across multiple sectors, is when you have standards that compete, or standards that change all the time. and you know, it leads to almost an investment in over accounting and not enough in research, development, innovation, the things that the private sector and you all want us to do more and more and more of. And so the more that these standards, as they evolve, they're revised, can be interoperable to lessen the burden on private sector and enable us to focus on innovation and research and development and long-term investments, the better.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And I think you also touch on Ho's point on the need to clarify the fragmentation and what is often called the alphabet soup, right, in the international standards. But you have shown us the fact that international standards are tools that private sector understand and can follow, and they give you the guidance that is needed. So the more clarity it is in that area, the less fragmentation, the more interoperability about these tools, the more effective they are for you to using them. Thank you so much, Carrie. And now I turn to Emma. Emma, same question. What do you see is the role of international standards and framework? How do you see the importance of them being consistent for you to deliver on climate action?
So Netflix is relatively small compared to Amazon. We're 13,000 employees, and our carbon footprint is about 1 million metric tons per year. However, our stories are told in 190 countries, so the vast majority of countries in the world. And we stream to all of those places through partnerships with internet service providers. The internet would not work without international standards. Literally no one would be able to speak to one another digitally. Nay, we are all using it right now by speaking in a common language, as opposed to needing translation, which is also something we rely upon standards to do, to subtitle and to dub our stories so that a story from Kerala, India can be enjoyed in Belém, Brazil. One of the most expensive things for a global company like ours or like Amazon's is a patchwork of standards. And so we often find ourselves advocating for the likes of an ISO standard to bring together all of the national bodies to align around what is practical globally. What we found is that also, in addition to making our accounting and legal lives a little bit easier and business a little bit less expensive to run, is that actually the ability to deliver on the ground is dependent upon those things, because demand aggregation is key. So again, for a company of our scale, when it comes to our need for clean energy or for electric vehicles or for mobile batteries, we're actually very small. What that means is we have to look to others, whether they be other companies in our sector or other sectors that have similar needs for mobile power or electric vehicles or the ability to plug into a grid when you're shooting on location. And by stacking that demand, we're able to send a much stronger market signal to both investors and to vendors, many of whom need to put real money and take real risk on the line in order to shift their inventory into the asset classes that we are looking for to meet our own climate targets. In the absence of standards, it is impossible for us to send that demand signal, because literally every company would be sending a different signal, and the signal would be lost in the noise. So my only last point to make, and I think it builds nicely on Carrie's, is that in the voluntary standards world, because so much of it is philanthropically funded, what we have noticed is that the speed at which many of these standards evolve and the timing with which they are iterated upon is not synchronized across the NGOs who are delivering these standards. So literally right now, we have 2 different corporate net zero standards, one at ISO and one at the Science Based Targets Initiative, being developed in parallel. and launching maybe within 6 to 12 months of one another. And then you have the underlying accounting standard, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, being revised at the same time, even though that is upstream of these net zero standards. You can imagine how puzzling that might seem to a corporate who is a user and reliant upon clarity of these standards. So I guess this is a request to the philanthropic community that they look ahead and that they coordinate their grant making such that the NGOs delivering on these important voluntary standards and the ISO bodies can coordinate, enabling corporates to adopt these standards with much greater confidence.
Thank you so much. Again, on the point of clarity, coherence, interoperability, super important. I'm pleased to say that there is a lot of work going on that space. We very recently announced the ISO GHG partnership, so we are going to be both organizations reviewing at the same time jointly our standards and hopefully being able to offer one unique methodology to the market, because I completely agree, we have to have the user at the main goal, as our main focus in delivering international standards. That's the only way to make them effective tools. I want to thank you because you have been amazing with timing, but I have now the privilege of having 1 more minute that I'm gonna give to the colleagues from Peru and Azerbaijan, just of a quick reaction to what you have heard, a call of action or a call that you would like to express after our discussion. Jimena, please.
Sure, thank you. I think, well, actually, after hearing all of you, I have to say that I just start to connect many of the things. For example, the colleague just mentioned, the climate promise, actually bring us, led me the opportunity to bring the 2 important instruments that we are developing in Peru, thanks to the climate promise, our climate financial strategy and our actually platform for carbon footprint are supporting, but at the beginning for climate promise. And they're very important because, for example, since our climate financing strategy, we are trying to set and we are trying to match the opportunities through the private sector and all the financial flows that I have to try to start to move this engineer, I mean, from in private sector to start to move forward into to promote this climate action that perhaps they are already doing, but they are need more going further than there. So and
one call for action. I mean, I have really literally over time. So one call or one wish.
And also for sure involving the private sector through our this carbon footprint platform. It was very important, and as the colleague said, we have to talk in the same languages. And when they start talking with private sector, we have to talk about the standards that they already know from previous action for the past, and this is very important for us. And to bring it together, we know that we have to set, and the information that we ask have to be in the same language that they are know at the moment.
Thank you, Jimena. And Faye, please.
Thank you very much. And I think the COP29 presidency also teaches us that international cooperation is one of the main important things to achieve our goals and the shared methodology. And today's discussion also shows that there is a opportunity that's mentioned by our colleagues, that if the countries integrate this energy transition, green economic transition into their national policies, they can gain, I don't know, by 2100, some certain percent of GDP increase. But sometimes countries need such an analysis to understand real the positive impact of this climate action. Maybe these economic organizations, the development partners need to work together with the countries to build their capacity, both maybe to attract, how make them, the policy makers, to shape their policies to attract more investments. And also they need, we also, when developing our NDCs to 2035, at the short term we see that the government, by involving the private sector and other investment, need to put a lot of money to achieve its goal. But we also need to see it from the longer perspective. While this green energy transition happens, we also can benefit from it. Like some countries already leading this process and gaining a lot and the giving. So that the working together, aligning our policies and getting some policy insight analysis and helping countries to build their confidence. Most of the countries a bit not that confident to put that ambitious targets.
Thank you so much. And with this, I hope I will close the session now. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. I think the message is clarity, interoperability, collaboration among us, and I hope you also, as you said, Jimena, managed to put some dots together, and how things connect, and how action cannot be isolated by the different actors, and the role that international standards plays as the bridge between ambition, public goals, and real action. Thank you so much.